Hello, everyone. My name is Yongkang. Today, I'm going to show you how to migrate containers from Azure Cloud AKS cluster to Google Cloud Kubernetes Engine cluster. Let's get started. So first of all, I need to build the labs. I will show you exactly how to build the labs. So I will use the automation to build the AKS cluster. Comes with MySQL deployed and also custom K10 deployed as my source cluster. Here is a source code. If you're not sure how to build it, I also have a YouTube video to walk you through step by step how to build the environment by the automation. And here is a link to the source code. So with that, let me come to the web console. Azure, Microsoft Azure portal. I got my automation GitHub page here. So you can see this is for AKS K10 Automation. So how to build the environment? You log into Azure Cloud and open Cloud Shell, and then you clone the repository. So here is what I'm here. And let me actually remove my old stuff. So AKS-K10. And then I clone the repository. After I clone the repository, I need to create the app registration. So I paste the create app here, and shortly the environment will be ready to deploy. So how to deploy? So we just run the /deploy.sh command. So we will deploy to your environment. What we're going to deploy? We will create an AKS cluster. We will install custom K10. We will deploy MySQL database and create the Azure Blob storage location profile, create a backup policy, kick off on-demand backup jobs. So my environment is ready to deploy. Let me paste the command, press enter. So now I'm already kicked off to automate the AKS cluster plus MySQL plus custom K10, and also including the backup policies. Okay, let me come back. The whole step, it does take about 10 minutes. Sometimes, most of the time, just less than, 10 minutes. Okay, come back to the slide deck. I already started to build my source cluster, which is AKS plus MySQL plus custom K10. And now I'm going to build another cluster, which is from Google Cloud. Again, I will use the automation. So I will automate the GKE cluster plus PostgreSQL plus custom K10 as my target cluster. So here is a step-by-step of how to automate the creation of GKE PostgreSQL plus K10. Here is an automation source code, also from our GitHub page. So come back to the browser. I will switch to another tab. Here is my Google Cloud Shell. I will authorize. So I log into, let me reconnect. So I log into my Google Cloud console, and I also open up the Cloud Shell. And here is another GitHub page. So basically to show you how to build the whole environment by the automation. So first of all, clone the repository. So let me come back to the Cloud Shell. So I'm in the Cloud Shell. And let me remove my old repository. So I remove my old repository. I do the git clone. By the way, it's a one-time job. If it's already there, you don't have to, remove it and do it again. Okay, I'm just showing you from scratch. If you have a new environment, you log into new Cloud Shell, you don't have anything, you need to do the git clone. Okay, so after I clone the repository, I will create a service account. So paste the command here. I will create the service account, and shortly the service account will be ready. And now you got the options. What are you going to deploy? If you just want to create a GKE cluster, you run GKE-deploy. If you already have a GKE cluster, you just want to protect the GKE cluster. So that's K10-deploy. For my case, I don't have anything yet. So I will choose the third option, /deploy. So basically, we're going to create a GKE cluster, install custom K10, deploy PostgreSQL database, create a Google Cloud storage location profile, create a backup policy, kick off on-demand backup jobs. Okay, now my environment is ready to deploy. This is from a Google Cloud. So I run the command /deploy.sh. So now I'm also building my target cluster. Okay, come back to the slide deck. So how to make the migration works? I want to migrate MySQL running on AKS cluster to Google Cloud GKE Kubernetes cluster. So I need to find a common storage bucket. So a common S3 storage bucket is required and it can be accessed by both of the Kubernetes cluster. Okay, I will show you shortly how to create the S3 bucket once I logged into the custom K10 web console. So first of all, let me walk you through the demo setup. So here is the diagram. I got my source cluster here. It's called AKS. I have all of my Kubernetes configurations here. I use Azure Managed Disks. I got my PVC, pod, service, MySQL running here. I got a configure map, secrets, etc. So custom K10 also deployed as a containers running in a separate namespace in your Kubernetes cluster. In this case, I got one custom K10 namespace. I got one namespace for MySQL. So how to run the backup? So I will do the snapshot of your whole application. So in this case, when we do a snapshot of your application containers, not only we are capturing your application components, we also capturing your Kubernetes configurations, your pod, your configure map, secret service account, role binding, etc. And plus the persistent volume claim snapshot. So shortly in the web console, you will see part of the backup jobs. We will take you will see 3 different subtasks: application components, application configurations, and plus the application, the PVC snapshot. Okay, once we complete the snapshot, so all of your production storage here, your backup storage also sitting in the container storage. It's not safe. So we allow you copy the whole snapshot to the external object storage, it could be NFS storage. That will be more reliable. And then you can leverage the cheaper cloud storage for the long-term retention. And if you enable the object lock or retention lock, actually can allow you to avoid the ransomware attack. This is my source cluster, okay? So I want to migrate to my target cluster GKE Kubernetes engine, Google Kubernetes engine. So how to? I got the Google Kubernetes engine cluster running here. I'm building the cluster right now, but on my target cluster, I have PostgreSQL running, but I don't have MySQL here. But I also have my custom K10 installed. So how to migrate? So we can simply to create a one import policy, part of the import policy, 2 subtasks. So first of all, I will import the data from the object storage. In this case, I will use a common object storage bucket. Both clusters can access the object storage. And after the import completes, I will run a restore process. It is actually part of one import policy. You just enable the restore. After the restore, basically, on the right-hand side, initially, I don't have the MySQL. And after the restore completes, MySQL is up running here. So for my case, I was using 1 GB persistent volume claims. It's pretty small. Basically, we migrated from MySQL from AKS to GKE just under 3 minutes. Okay, that's the high level how it works, the diagram. So let me check if the cluster is up running yet. So by the way, I'm actually building AKS cluster running from a US Central 1, and my Google Kubernetes engine cluster is running from a Singapore region. So it is definitely it's a cross-cloud, cross-region replication or migration. And it is actually also running different version. I will show you shortly. So let me come back to the Cloud Shell. So we are still building the clusters, but just to show you right now, we are almost done from the Google Cloud. We're waiting for the Web Console IP address and the token code. And from Azure Cloud, we actually just completed the building. So you can see total time, 8 minutes, 12 seconds. So we already created the AKS cluster. We installed a MySQL database. We configured the backup policy. We installed a custom K10. The backup job also kicked off. So how to log into the Web Console? Double click, copy the token code, and then click the link to open the Web Console. So I click the link, I paste the token code here, click sign. So first time login, you will be asked to provide your username, email address, and also provide your company name, click submit. So I log into my custom K10 Web Console running on Azure Cloud. So right now, once I logged in, you might notice I already have a backup jobs is already running. So why? Because part of my automation, I already have the sample database K10-MySQL created. And I also have my backup policy configured. So this is my K10-MySQL backup policy. So for the purpose of this demo, I'm not going to just explain you detail how to configure the backup policies, but just to highlight, so the backup policy is part of the automation. It's already there. We schedule the backup jobs to run every hour. And yeah, the job is running right now. And where we store the backup data. So remember from the diagram, the initial snapshot was created from the container storage. In this case, Azure Managed Disks. But how to copy to the object storage? It's under the settings. If I click the settings here, you can see I was using Southeast Asia region. This is my Azure blob storage bucket name. So we do the snapshot and then copy to the object storage bucket. In this case, I was using Southeast Asia and Azure Blob Storage. This is AZ, that's the storage provider. So remember, our goal is to migrate from AKS to GKE to Google Kubernetes Engine Cluster. So I need to use a common storage bucket. So for me, I don't want to deal with the complexity to create a Azure Blob Storage a bucket from a Google Cloud. So I prefer to create a new profile. When I create a new profile, you can see I got multiple options here. I can create a Google Cloud storage. Technically, I can use any one of the supported storage as a common storage for my migration. But if I click a Google Cloud Storage, you might notice I need the project ID, I need the service keys, I need the location, bucket name, etc. If I want to choose Azure Blob Storage, you need to have the storage account created. You need to have the storage access key, etc. For me, I personally think Amazon S3 makes life a lot easier. So all you need to do is just to provide an access key, secret key, region, bucket name. That's it. So for example, I might want to create my AWS S3, and then you provide your access key, your secret key, choose your region, choose the bucket name, and then click Save Profile. Okay, to make life simpler, to make it easier. And the other thing is I don't want to expose my secret key, access key. So what I'm going to do is I will create the location profile by the automation. So how to create it? So you just run, by the way, all the source code, all the command I'm running here, you can find it from my GitHub page. So for example, here, if I scroll up, you can see migration S3 location, how I create the S3 location profile from Azure Cloud. Okay, come back to the command line. I just press enter. So you will be asked to provide an access key and the secret key ID. So similarly, I don't want to expose my secret key access key. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy my existing AWS access key to the folder, so I will not be asked to provide the access key. Okay, so I copy my AWS access key to this folder. So now I'm going to run this command migration again. So we will create the S3 profile, create the S3 secrets. So if I come back to the web console, do a refresh, you can see I got my migration storage profile created. So I was using AWS S3, and this is my bucket name. I use the common migration bucket here, and it has been created successfully. So if you want to edit, you can see, you can create it from the web console. If you prefer, you just provide the access key, secret keys, region, bucket name. So from my source cluster, I'm all done, but I haven't configured my policy to send my backup data to the migration storage bucket yet. So let me show you how to create a backup policy. So if I come back here, I can see my K10 MySQL, I already have a backup policy here. Technically, I can change the existing policy. It was initially configured to send the backup to Azure Blob storage. Now I want to use the Amazon S3 as a migration bucket. So how I can update the policy, but instead of the update the policy, I can create a new policy. I don't want to touch my existing policy. Let me just walk you through how to create a new policy. You just give a policy name. Let's say migration MySQL, and you choose the backup frequency, could be hourly. You can make it even every 5 minutes, and you can customize the retention settings, and make sure you enable backup by snapshot exports, and then select the right location profile. I want to use my AWS S3 migration profile. Okay, so click create a policy. We will create the policy for you. If you prefer to create via the YAML file from command line, you click YAML here. So let me say, did I miss anything? Oh, I haven't selected the application. So I select my application and then click the YAML file. We generate the YAML file for you to create from a command line. You just copy the whole YAML file, and then you can create it from a command line. To make it simple, I'm not going to create the policy from here. I got my automation here. All you need to do is I want to do AKS to GKE migration, MySQL policy. I will create a MySQL policy, not only create a backup policy, I will also kick off the on-demand backup jobs. I press enter. I created my backup policy, AKS2GKE -MySQL -backup. Now I'm going to kick off the on-demand backup jobs. If I come back to my web console, do a refresh, you can see my AKS2GKE MySQL backup policy also configured. If I go back to the dashboard, you can see my backup jobs also kicked off successfully. The backup jobs right now is running. We need to wait the job finish before I can restore. I can migrate to Google Kubernetes engine. Okay, let me come back to my target cluster, which is Google Cloud. So as you can see, this time it took 7 minutes, 4 seconds. I built the whole environment. So just to summarize what we are building here, in 7 minutes, we created GKE Kubernetes engine cluster. We installed custom K10, we deployed a PostgreSQL database, and created the backup policy, how to access the console. Double click, copy the token code, click the link to launch the custom web console from Google Cloud. So first time login, paste the token code, click sign in. And now, same thing, you will be asked to provide your company name, your email address, click submit. So I log into my web console, and you can see I also have my backup jobs completed successfully. But this time, from my target cluster, Google Cloud, I was running PostgreSQL. I don't have MySQL. So for the purpose of this, recording, I will show you how to migrate MySQL from an AKS cluster to GKE Kubernetes engine. So let's wait the backup job finish. And in the meantime, remember from the settings. So right now I got the Kubernetes, I got my Google Cloud storage location profile. It was created from a US Central One. How I can read my source data from an AKS, I created the bucket name. It's called K10 migration bucket for Yongkang. So I need to create the same, I need to be able to read the same, read the data from the same bucket. So I can easily create new profile, choose Amazon, provide all the details, but I want to make it simple. So I'm going to copy, just run another migration, S3 location profile. Similarly, it will be asked to provide an access key, secret key. So as long as you provide an AWS access key, secret key, we will create automatically. But again, I don't want to expose my secret key, access key. So what I'm going to do is I just copy my existing AWS access key to AWS access to my folder. So now I'm going to run the migration S3 location profile. So we will create the S3 profile secret and then followed by create the S3 profile. So now if I'm do a refresh again here, so I got my AWS S3 migration profile also configured successfully. This is my bucket name. So remember, if I come back to my source cluster, so from here, if I go to settings, you can see I'm using the same bucket name from the same region, from a Singapore region. So both of them are using the same bucket name. So now, as long as the backup job finished and the export job copy to the object storage also completed successfully, we can start the import migration process. So it's almost there. Let me just wait a few more seconds. So while we're running, we are here, let me show you the job details. If I click the job details, you can see my first task, the backup job, not only we're doing the application components snapshot, we're also doing the Kubernetes application configuration snapshot, plus the workload MySQL snapshot. So that's why you see 3 subtasks here. The backup jobs has been completed successfully. The export, which is a copy to the object storage bucket, also completed successfully. So before I show you how to migrate, just to show you here, from the backup details, on the right-hand side, you can see all of the details, all of the spec artifacts. So literally every spec artifacts from your Kubernetes cluster was captured here. So if you want to, in the future, if something happens, you want to recover, we allow it not only to do the full restore in place, restore to a new namespace, we also allow it to select the individual resource, do the recovery. Okay, so since we already have the backup job completed successfully, let me now show you how to migrate from the target cluster. Okay, come back to the slide deck here. So how to, literally just, typically around 3 minutes, I can migrate MySQL from a source AKS cluster to my target GKE cluster. So step 1, I already configured, let me come back. So I actually already have the backup policy configured. Remember, I created the S3 bucket using the common name. It's called K10 migration for Yongkang. That's my location profile. I was using AWS S3 bucket. and I have a backup policy from my source cluster. I also export the backup data to my S3 object storage. In this case, I was using Amazon S3. It can be any other S3 compatible storage. And step 2. So now we already finished the step 1. We have the backup policy. We have the successful backup jobs. Now I will move to the second part. So from the target cluster, you need to create the import policy. I already configured a location profile pointing to the same storage bucket. So this step, I was using the migration scripts. I already configured this one. Now I'm going to create an import policy. I need to read the data from my source cluster S3 bucket. And then I will restore MySQL to my target cluster. So basically, just on the 3 minutes, the cluster, the MySQL database will be up running from my GKE cluster. So come back to the web console. So now I need to go to my target cluster web console. And from here, just to showing you again, from the applications tab, I do not have any MySQL application. So what I'm going to do is I need to create a new policy. So let's say the new policy is called import MySQL from AKS. So I will select the import. I need the token code. Where to find the token code? It's from your source cluster backup policy. I come back to my source cluster, click the backup policies. This is my source backup policy, AKS2GKE MySQL Backup. There is a button here, show import details. I copy the token code and then paste the token code to my target cluster. So I paste the token code here. So I discover you got the profile, my AWS S3 migration profile, and how you're going to run the import process. You can make it every hour, you can make it every 5 minutes. It can be one-time job or it can be a standby DR. You can schedule based on your requirements. So for now, I just make it as I might just leave it as a daily, for example. And after the import job, I want to restore my application. So I take the option restore after import. So here is the thing. So if I come back here to check my storage class from my source cluster, from my AKS, and also I'm going to check from my target cluster from a Google Cloud. So did you guys notice from my Google Cloud, I got a standard as a default storage class. I got a premium RWO. I got the standard RWO. But from my source AKS Cloud Kubernetes cluster, I have a default. I don't have a standard. So if you simply to migrate, because the storage class is completely different, so you can't migrate to the target cluster. So this is the powerful feature from Custom. We allow you to apply the transformation. This is very powerful. So let me show you here. So I add a new transformation. I change my storage class. So my target storage class, I can choose any, you don't have to choose the default storage class standard. I might choose the premium RWO, for example. Okay, so I copy paste the value here. So what I'm going to transform here is I will transform my storage class from my source cluster, which is default, to premium RWO. Okay, so click edit operation. But by the way, there are a lot of transformation. Literally every Kubernetes objects resources here, you can transform. So for now, I just use the storage class as an example, but you have to choose this because different cloud, different cluster, you're using different storage class. So create the transformation. So I done my job. So I create the import policy. I enable it to restore after import. I configure the transformation. So one more thing. Do I need to, so by default, we will restore everything from your source backup. So now, do I really need to restore the storage? So your source storage class, it's useless. So you got the premium, manage the premium, you got the Azure managed disk, all these storage class, storage resources actually is useless. So what I can do is I can exclude the storage group. So I added the filter. So before I click the create a policy, again, I want to show you, you can automate this. So this is a YAML file I generated for you. You can run from a command line. You copy the whole YAML file and then keep control, apply or create -F with the YAML file. We will create the policy. So for now, let me create the policy. So after I click create the policy, instead of waiting for the next scheduled job, I'm going to go ahead to click run once, run now. So I run the policy, go back to the dashboard. You can monitor the status. Also, you can monitor the status from the command line. So I just run get port status shortly. You will notice actually the data mover just up running 2 seconds ago. So this is a data mover we are using. This is a container. So we are casting K10 also running as a containers. When you need it, we will launch more containers. So right now, we just launched the data mover container. So the data mover container was launched to read the data from my storage bucket. So the job already done. So we are terminating the data mover container. Okay. So while we're running here, if you want to come back to the dashboard, you can see my first subtask already completed successfully. So you can notice here, my import job already finished. Now I'm going to kick off the restore job. So the data already being read successfully. Now we're going to restore the containers. So if I come back to the command line, you can monitor, you can see the casting K10, we launched the affinity port first. And then after the affinity port launched successfully, we're going to restore the containers. So there is a temporary restore container is up running now. And shortly, we're going to bring up the production containers up running. So yeah, the whole process is pretty much very simple, very straightforward. Just within minutes, your production containers was running from our AKS cluster, running our US Central 1 region, now migrated to my Google Cloud running from our Singapore region. So while we're talking here, MySQL containers is already up running, but now we're waiting for the readiness check. So just within a few seconds, the container will be ready, okay? So you might notice the application restore data port has been terminated right now. It's in terminating status right now. And now you can see the last line here, MySQL -0, this is my containers, is already up running. It is already in ready status. So 50 seconds, it's up running. So if I come back to the web console just to confirm, you can see my restore job also completed successfully. Okay, so if you want to check, yeah, the total time is just under 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 56 seconds. So remember, this is migrate containers running from US Central 1, Iowa, and migrated to Singapore region. So just 3 minutes. Okay, the job already completed successfully. If I click the applications tab again, you will notice, you might have noticed it was only 2 applications. Now I got 3 applications. So why 3? Because I got the K10-MySQL just completed the restore. And the moment you bring up a new containers, we will discover the new applications. Okay, that basically completes the migration demo. Let me come back to my slide deck here. So as you can see, 2 high-level 2 steps. From a source cluster, you configure backup policy. From a target cluster, you configure import policy. And then once the job kicked off complete successfully, your MySQL up running on Google Kubernetes Engine cluster in just about 3 minutes. So optionally, you can migrate PostgreSQL from my GKE cluster. I got the PostgreSQL running. You can migrate from a GKE to AKS. So the other way around also works. So for the purpose of this demo, I'm not going to do the PostgreSQL migration from a GKE to AKS. That could be the next recording. Okay, just to highlight a few major use case, why customer using the application mobility or application migration for simplicity of your cluster upgrade, for your application transformation, for your storage transformation, to migrate from all your test dev cluster to your production, or come back from production to test dev cluster, could be for troubleshooting purposes. So really a few benefits here. So with the migration application mobility feature here, we enable you to cross the cloud portability or migration of applications between Kubernetes cluster. We allow you to keep some application running on premises while running other application in the cloud provider. It's a hybrid model. And we allow you to easily to migrate between public and the private Kubernetes deployment efficiently. And we will provide you the planning and understanding of Kubernetes upgrade by migrating application predictably to an upgraded cluster. So you just create an empty new cluster. We allow you to easily to migrate from the older environment to the new environment. Let me actually come back to the web console. Log into the Cloud Shell just to showing you I'm actually running different versions. So from my Google Cloud, I was running 1.21.6. And from my Azure Cloud, I was running 1.21.7. So it's only a slight difference, but we do allow it to migrate from could be from a 1.18 or 1.19 to 1.22 or maybe 1.21, downgrade to 1.20 or 1.19. So all of these are supported. So not only supporting you from an older version to the newer version, we also allow you to migrate from a newer version to the older version. Okay. So come back to the slide deck just to share with you a few reference links. The first one is Kubernetes free training. And after the free training, you can collect the popular Kubernetes badges. So you got all the popular Kubernetes badges. I love it. And the documentation page, the official documentation page, and a few links about my free automation tools on Google Cloud, Azure Cloud, Amazon Cloud, IBM Cloud, OpenShift. So for Google Cloud, I was using the automation 6 minutes, so I can build the whole environment. And for Azure Cloud, I need about 8 minutes, AKS plus MySQL plus K10 policy backups. And for AWS Cloud, it does take about 20 minutes. But similarly, you just run one command to deploy, and we will build the EKS plus Cassandra plus K10. And on IBM Cloud, one command, 45 minutes. So we're going to build the OpenShift cluster plus OpenShift container storage plus MongoDB, etc. There is a little bit additional information if you are interested. So basically, from my YouTube channel, I focusing on how to build a Kubernetes cluster among all the popular Kubernetes clusters, how to back up the containers from these popular Kubernetes cluster, and how to migrate the containers. So I got the existing one, how to migrate from on-premise to Alibaba Cloud ACK, how to migrate from OpenShift to OpenShift, but was running different version. Right now, I'm building how to migrate from AKS to Google Kubernetes Engine, but I'm planning to record more. Okay, the last one is about how to build and protect the Kubernetes cluster by the automation. Yeah, that's all I want to cover. Last but not least, I want to highlight, if you are willing to learn, let's learn multi-cloud, let's learn Kubernetes together. By now, I'm already 38 times multi-cloud certified, including CK8, CK8, CKS. Follow me from our LinkedIn. If you are interested, you can also follow me on Twitter, and you can join the Kubernetes data management group. Everything about the Kubernetes backup, restore DR, app mobility, etc. And you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's also about Kubernetes data management, backup, build a popular Kubernetes cluster, how to backup the containers, how to migrate the containers, etc. Last but not least, if you are interested, you can follow me on GitHub. So it is pretty popular. I got hundreds of clones every 2 weeks. Yeah, that's all I want to cover for today. Very much appreciated for your time. Thanks for watching, and feel free to send me some feedbacks, comments, and follow me via any one of the ways. Thank you very much. Have a good one.